All right, we're live. Okay, so I'm just going to make note at the beginning of this so that the instructor knows we've been actually online for a half hour at this point, working to get things done um, and connected. So we may lose one of our members partway through, but it's only because of technical difficulties. The quick synopsis of this particular story is Barbara Norris has been hired on um, in the general surgery unit to go over or to basically clean up the department. They've had a lot of problems. They have a lot of confrontation and blaming and favoritism. The culture has just been really negative, and so when she got hired on, the her boss was just
Hey guys, I'm
he
back.
wants her to fix it. Hi, Austin. We've decided to go ahead and jump in and start.
Okay, sorry I
Um,
took so long.
no, that's fine. We have Thor joining us. He's able to hear us this time. So,
Hey,
Yeah,
well,
it's just shy of a miracle, man. Holy smokes.
I was just doing a brief synopsis of the case. We're just talking. Barbara was hired on as the general surgery unit to clean up the mess that's going on there. It actually
okay.
reminds me a lot of our reading that we've done this week from the five dysfunctions of a team. Catherine, what she's facing. Um, so there's a lot of confrontation and blaming and favoritism, and the everyone seems to be unhappy in overall. And then the other section is the Harvard Business Review. And in that particular one, it talks about the four driving forces that will help for increasing employee motivation. And that's acquiring, bond, comprehend, and defend. Did I miss anything that anyone else wants to jump in and add on this?
No, that's about right.
Okay. So the first question that they ask us is, what are the root problems that Barbara Norris is facing, and discuss them in depth.
So, okay, so I had a couple of them. So the first one is that their GSU unit is like ranked the lowest for customer satisfaction, um, and it's due to a lot of lack of motivation in terms of like the nurses have favoritism towards other clients or patients or physicians, and they argue a lot. And another thing that I noticed is that there's no budgeting in their unit. So if somebody was sick, they're not even going to be able to get paid time off. And I think it just overall is just hurting the unit to a really bad extent.
I agree. Having the freeze and everything that they have in place also doesn't help. Um, looks like with the budget, everything is just locked into place, and everyone's expected to work overtime. They also have lost the total of 5 nurses. Um, and so that's a lot of work to have to make up. Anyone else?
I was thinking it almost seems like there's kind of been a bad culture that's kind of been set in stone just for a long period of time. So it's like she's kind of come in and almost kind of reverse. I guess there's like the hard circumstances that they're in, but it's like everybody's kind of got these set in stone attitudes, like the nurses who've been there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of the newer ones are like, what the heck? Like this doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, so how do you think she's done her first month as a manager? Do you think she's a good choice for the position, or do you think she's kind of walked in and hasn't made that big of an impact? That's the next question. Sorry, you might pick up some noise here. My daughter's crawling around on me. I will try and keep her quiet.
I think it was a good start so far. I think the hard part will be implementing everything that she's learned. She pulled a and in a group and kind of figured out the problems and have them after a while and trying to pry at them to kind of address their problems and issues. And through that activity, I think she has a good start of what the problems are. I think just implementing it might be difficult.
Mm-hmm. She also came from a really good unit. So she can see how an effective team works versus how a non-effective team works. And she's been able to pull and glean some ideas from her previous unit. What changes is she trying to make and why?
I think she's just trying to change the way they do things in their unit, just because, like you said, they've lost 5 nurses, and it's really affecting the other people who are working. They have to do a lot of extra shifts. No, hardly any paying is coming out of that department. I think she's just overall trying to figure out how she can change everybody's motivation and try to figure out a way to get things right back on track to where their customer satisfaction rating goes up, the employees' motivations go up, and the GSU unit becomes a stronger department of the EMU.
Mm-hmm. I thought one of the nurse's comments was really interesting, where she said, aren't the customers first? She wasn't willing to help out. She wasn't willing to help out in training some of the other nurses or answering questions because she was so focused on taking care of her patients. So she's like, isn't that first, or aren't our patients first? And in the Harvard Business Review, there's a section that talks about companies that if they focus on taking care of their employees, then the employees will take care of the customers. And in this particular company, the company is not taking care of the employees by literally stretching them to their limits. And so in order to get that satisfaction to go up, I think the company overall has to make some changes too. It's not just Barbara that's got to implement them, but she's the first step, I guess. Anybody else?
I definitely agree with that. I think, yeah, like an organizational standpoint, they definitely have to make changes. I think looking at like what Barbara was taken from her last team was like the ability to have those review sessions with the different employees where they actually sat down and gave constructive feedback. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like thinking of one thing that I think she's trying to implement or start doing is actually have those like sit down like little interview things with all of her employees just to make sure they're actually improving or making sure like their needs are getting met. And it could even like end kind of bad behavior within or bad attitudes and stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, I think she's bringing in a culture of trying to bring in a culture of transparency and trust, and so I think, yeah.
Okay. What are the 3 obstacles to affecting change that Norris should anticipate, and how should she address them? I think one of the obstacles are what one of you said earlier. They've been set in this bad culture for some time, and sometimes it's really hard for people to change. So you're going to have some of the nurses or staff that just are set in their ways. They have some that have been there for 20 plus years, and So I think one of the obstacles they'll face is whether or not those staff members or members of our new unit will adjust to change. I think it's possible, and I think that they may even want it, but I think sometimes bad habits are hard to overcome. Do any of you know, can any of you think of another obstacle that she's going to face or that she needs to anticipate and be prepared to address?
I think the budget cuts is definitely one of them. I think if they're trying to fill in like your staff position so people aren't stretched too thin, but like I think they're saying, is this like taking place in the time of like the recession or something?
Yeah. Well, the economy is really tight. It didn't say it was during the recession, but it is during a time frame where the economy is struggling.
Okay. I think I think that could be a something they run into. Like just and it almost would be like instituting like a kind of a perspective within her unit that hey, we're here to help each other out and this is kind of like where we're at financially. This is what we can afford. So it's like
Mhm.
we're here to help the patients. We're here to bring happiness into their lives, and we can kind of scratch each other back. You know what I mean? Help each other out. I don't know. I don't know if that really made sense.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I'm trying to think of anything else, and I don't know. I think what Thor said is pretty good.
I agree. I had one and it keeps slipping my mind and then it comes back and disappears again. So it's gone. My train derailed. All right. Let's see here. Advise of an action plan for Norris. What are the specific types, what specific things should she do?
Wait, say that again?
What type of action plan should she take? Specifics.
Well, I kind of did like a long term and a short term thing for her action plan when I did the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And for like a short term plan, I thought as manager over the GSU, I thought she could meet with every individual nurse or physician and just kind of go over some things that they'd like to see some improvements on or try to see exactly what it is they're struggling with and come up with a little goal as in terms of how each nurse can complement another nurse or they could serve one another and then report back to her. And a long-term goal is to just get that motion set up to where it actually starts affecting the customers as well, that the customers are letting the nurses know what they could improve on and just hopefully try to change things around.
That's really great.
Kind of like a mission statement or something for the whole department.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the other one we did. I just remembered one of the things that the staff complained about was they didn't get recognized for the things that they did, as well as there was one particular nurse who said, look, I do all these extra trainings and I'm staying on top of everything. I do a lot of out of work training so that I can be the best that I can be. And so I think one of the obstacles that Barbara would face is making sure that she gives recognition where recognition is due. And for one of my action plan items is I think that there should be a reward system. After reading, excuse me, after reading the article on the 4 driving forces, one of the things they said is that affects them the greatest and the quickest is having a reward system. And so an action plan that involves a reward system, it doesn't necessarily have to be money driven. It can be kind of like what I think Austin was the one saying, giving compliments to other employees. I think doing a reward system where people are being complimented or recognized within the department, even if it's just their picture on the wall or something to show recognition, it'll help improve morale for the people that are doing going the extra mile. And then ultimately, there was another statement about their income and their annual raises, their annual performance reviews and raises. And this one I think is more of a company-wide change that would have to take place, but the manager could help implement it by contacting or going up the chain and letting them know the concerns. Because certainly, though it's nice that everybody can get a raise, there are certain employees that may not necessarily deserve as much as others. And if they learn or have learned the habit of they don't have to do as much, then that requires, puts more stress on everybody else in the department. So part of that reward system would also be their actual evaluation and increase or no increase in their income. Okay, the last thing says to focus on the 4 drive theory that was in the Harvard Business School paper that we read, I'm sorry. The first part, the drive to acquire, says humans have a fundamental need to seek and acquire objects and experiences they value. Given the general scarcity of desired objects and experiences, this drive draws humans into competition with one another. How well does GSU's reward system fulfill the drive to achieve and acquire?
I don't think currently they're doing that good of a job. It seems like a lot of the feedback people are getting is kind of it's like negative or they're not getting any feedback at all. So at least in that department.
I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they value their employees that much, and so the drive for like a promotion or the drive to learn something new or become better at the job is just difficult because everyone's leaving, which means they're having you work longer hours, which isn't very.
I agree. The second one is the drive to bond. Humans have a fundamental emotional need to seek and develop mutual social commitments. This drive draws humans into collaboration with one another. How well does GSU's culture fulfill the drive to belong and bond? I think in this one they are also lacking. They're struggling in this department. They don't do lunches together. They don't seem to collaborate well as a team. I think that Barbara came from a really good area and a really good team that worked well, but the particular department she's over just is not.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. And there's only 2 more. Let's see, the drive to comprehend. Humans have a fundamental emotional need to develop understandings of their environments and themselves. This drive draws humans to collecting information, building new knowledge, exploring new possibilities, and finding meaning in their activities in life. How well does GSU's job design fulfill the drive to challenge and comprehend?
I don't know. It's almost like the same as the last two.
I know they're kind of striking out, aren't they?
Yeah. Seriously though. Seriously, it's like you have maybe there's that one employee who was kind of getting after it after work or whatever on her own time learning stuff, but nobody else seemed to have the motivation to. And even the one doing it was kind of like burning out. She's like, I'm not getting any recognition or compensation for this.
Yeah. And, I think the hospital needs to be very aware that she might be grabbed up by somebody else soon.
Oh yeah.
She's not happy. She's going to start looking for work somewhere else. And she's going above and beyond, so she'll become valuable to other hospitals. Okay, last one, the drive to defend. Humans have a fundamental emotional drive to defend our accomplishments in fulfilling our other three drives. When such accomplishments are threatened, human experiences fear or anger and response by flight or fight. How well does GSU's performance management system fulfill the drive to depend and defend?
I don't know. It's almost like the other ones. I feel like they are in the wrong for right now.
Yeah. So if they're hurting in all of their culture or in all four areas, I mean, based on our reading, just having one area is detrimental. If one area is missing, is detrimental. So if they're missing all four, is there a particular area that you think Barbara should focus on? Or do you think she should take a little bit from each of them?
I don't know. I feel like the drive to bond would be significant just because it would at least get maybe unity and like I don't know, camaraderie like in the department. So maybe when she's trying to implement other things, like people might buy in a little faster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, or really she could just tackle all of them, but I don't know if that's realistic of doing it at the same time.
And it almost seems like it would probably fall through just because it would be so much to take on at one time.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, we already discussed the action plan. That was the last thing, was discuss an action plan that she thinks she should take. Is there anything else anyone wants to add to it? Because if not, that is the whole outline.
Oh man, just thanks for being patient with me, guys. I totally appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, Thor.
I don't have any other action plan that I could think of.
Okay.
I would just say implementing a plan of transparency and openness within the company, but that's it. Nothing else.
Okay. Well, then I think we've hit everything, and we did it in record time.
Yeah, thank you guys. I was about ready to. I'm probably going to leave as soon as we hang up.
That's okay. You have a safe drive where you're headed to. So,
All right, sounds great.
all right. Thanks, everyone. I'll post
Happy
this in just a few
Thanksgiving.
minutes.
Thanks,
Yeah, you
Meredith.
too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye.
All right, thank you.